All right, we're back in the shop.
Welcome.
Yeah, it's a going to be a busy Saturday. I think now that we're kind of weather is better. Weather is I don't know. Like we're in that time where like you can kind of go outside and it won't kill you just yet in Texas, and it's just I guess you're kind of in the right mood. And I wish we had more drive-ins around here because this is like perfect drive-in weather to like go and just sit outside, not have to like run inside the car and turn on the air conditioner every couple minutes.
Oh man, dude, I miss the drive-in so much. Can I tell you? I've had this fantasy of mine. It's funny you mentioned the drive-in. So over here in not too far from me is in Cedar Park. There's a quarry, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's a road, and on either side, it's dug. It's dug in. There you can look in there. You can see the guys. It's a quarry, right? Like you would imagine. So I've had this. I'm sure everybody does it. Like what you would do if you won the lotto,
right? Sure.
So I had this idea. So I think at some point, because there's a neighborhood not too far from the quarry, I think at some point they're going to have to stop digging or they'll have to stop excavating or whatever. So I had this crazy idea. Like if I was to come up with a shit ton of money, I would want to buy that property and build a drive-in theater in the quarry, because then you could, it won't be like once the sun starts to set, it'll be darker in there sooner because it's underground. And I was I was like, man, if I had the money, I would love to have a drive-in where like, you'd have to drive down, you get to a certain point, lights go off, and then there may be like, 2 or 3 screens, and I was wanting to call it, I figured I would call it Hole in the Earth Drive-In. And it's because it's on both sides. I wanted to like maybe have it where you drive in on one side and you'll have to drive under the road so that you're already lights out, and then you park to whichever movie.
Right.
I mean, there's just like so much shit in my brain that I wish I wish I would do. Well, I mean, I would love to have a drive-in theater.
It's funny you say that because like, and not that, well, I don't know, maybe this will all lead to something someday, but like I follow, like, I don't know, like I have a Facebook account, don't really use it a whole lot other than for the podcast or.
I share memes. That's about it.
Yeah, there's not like a ton. Well, actually, if anything, to me, it's more of like a garage sale now. Like there's a lot of stuff that I can find that is more local to my area. But the only other, I feel like, purpose for it is there are like groups. And then there's one that's specifically it's like a theater group. And I joined it because like somebody was posting pictures of like, oh, I used to work at this movie theater. And I was like, did you by chance ever work? And I was trying to see if I could find pictures of where you and I worked. But I wasn't able to find any. But through that, like there was another group that sort of came out of that, which was like drive-in adjacent. So it was like people talking about drive-ins and whatnot. And it was cool. And then what I kind of learned from that is like, I mean, it's all relative when you use the terms, like it's not that much money. But there were some people that were like, hey, these people are selling their drive-in and the property or whatever, and they only need to raise like X amount of dollars. And I was like, is that it? And it's like, well, yeah, because I mean, the overhead comes from renting the movies. You got to get the rights to do it. There's like permits, all this stuff. But I was like, kind of like, that actually doesn't seem like the most impossible like idea. And I don't know if you've ever been, I remember Denise and I went to the drive-in that's kind of down your way, but I think it's south of Austin in like, is it in Buda, I think? Yeah. Or Buda. Yeah. I forgot what it's called, but there was like, I think there were like 3 screens. And it was very like, it didn't seem like it was a more modern drive-in. And by that, I only mean like, it looks similar to what you're describing. It wasn't too far off the road. It just kind of went down a little gravel area. And a lot of things were just built out of those, what do you call them? The storage containers, the big...
Oh, yeah. Shipping containers,
so like, shipping containers, yeah. So like they had those, and then they basically put like a not probably a real legit theater like screen, but it was enough to project, and it was pretty large. And then like their concessions was basically just a shipping container, and their projection area is a shipping container. So they must have just had a lot of shipping containers, and that's all it is. Like, and it wasn't huge, and there was like enough for, I don't know, if I had to guess, like maybe you could squeeze in like 200 cars, maybe at most. It wasn't. It really wasn't that much. But it was really nice. Like, and then it was funny because they had little, I guess what they said cabins, but they're not really cabins. They're just like little, like a smaller storage container that had been converted into like a little place where you could stay. And so like, Denise and I stayed there because we were just like, we figured, well, why not? Like, we had spent the day in Austin, and then we spent the night like there, and was like, well, we'll just go watch a movie. That way, if we want to drink or if we just kind of want to hang out, we don't have to drive anywhere. We'll just literally walk over to which is on site.
Right.
And then we just kind of slept in there or whatever. I mean, it was very like, nothing particularly special. It was actually pretty, DIY kind of feeling, but I mean, whatever. The idea and the concept I really liked. And I was like, man, if there was just land somewhere where, you could do that, doesn't cost too much, kind of start small, see where it kind of goes. Cause like, we have a drive-in in Fort Worth, which is actually really nice, called the Coyote Drive-In. And then there's the drive-in in Ennis, which is about 40 minutes from here. That one's pretty big, and it's like that one's pretty old school. Huh. And then there's one in Granbury, which is about an hour and 20 minutes from here.
Right.
It's kind of going towards Fort Worth.
And they're doing okay? I mean, that type of...
That's the thing, right? It's like they do, I think they do okay from the standpoint of like, they're all out in areas where probably property isn't very expensive. Like Granbury is not a very big city.
Right.
And so it's mostly just a lot of open land, right? So they're probably not paying much on taxes or whatever.
Okay.
And then the one in Fort Worth, I don't know, because that one's actually, what's cool about that one is it's somewhat close to downtown Fort Worth. So like, the screens are there, and then just past the screens, you can see all of downtown Fort Worth. And it's really nice, like, because you see all the buildings and the lights. Right. But it doesn't interfere with, like, the movie you're watching.
But it's in the backdrop. But
it's in the backdrop,
But
it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the view's cool, but that's not what you go for. But
no. But the movies that they show, they're all like Disney movies or whatever. They're all family sort of friendly sort of things.
So it's not new release stuff.
Well, no, they do show new release stuff, I guess, really? but not like they'll usually do a double feature, but it's, I guess, again, it's dependent on how long and how you can have that set up, because there's lots of rules about like showing movies and how often it's in the theater, how many times you show it.
Sure.
So they do get new releases, but they may not get all the new releases because some theaters are like, well, you have to show this at least X amount of times. And they're like, well, we only show at night, it's only one show at night. Like,
there's no matinee features at a fucking drive-thru.
Right.
Wow,
so
that's
they're not
crazy.
Make,
I honestly just thought that in this day and age with everything streaming, that those kind of things would die out, unfortunately. But I mean, hell.
Yeah. No.
So you're saying there's a chance.
there is a chance. Well, no, it's funny you say that because and that kind of ties into the movie we're going to talk about today, but it's in a more long roundabout way, because so the movie that we're gonna talk about today that came out in it was made in 2011, or it came out in 2011, but it had, I think it's like US release in 2012.
Yes.
And so, which is the movie is The Raid Redemption. I didn't know that it had like the redemption part. It was just
that's only in the US.
When I heard about it, it was just The Raid. But the reason why I feel like it ties into what we were talking about is like, it's kind of funny because this movie came out around a time when streaming hadn't really taken off at this point. I think maybe we had Netflix, but I remember video stores were still around in 2012, and they were at the tail end, and they were kind of dying. Drive-ins probably were there was not much in the way of drive-ins. The idea of these classic theaters like the Texas Theater, like they were around, but they were not thriving like they are now in the sense of doing very special showings and whatnot. And so there was this period like in the mid to late 2000s, I feel like, where the video store was dying. Discs were becoming more of a thing. You would go to like Best Buy or Circuit City or places like that to buy your movies.
Yep.
But you missed out on that, like what the video store offered, right? Which is like walking into the kung fu section or the action section and having somebody say like, "Hey, have you ever heard of this movie called The Raid?" And I bring that up because I don't know if have you ever seen the movie called Hard Boiled?
No.
The Chow Yun Fat. Okay, so that's maybe another one we're gonna have to watch. I'll have to educate you on your action / international sort of movie scene. So
international.
In high school,
I definitely got to get spun up on international because
I've got tons.
My martial arts is limited to what the U.S. was gifted by Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris.
Right.
There's a couple other more recent ones that I'm into, but
the pseudo mainstream, like how that evolved. So I think this is going to be interesting because The Raid is I feel like in that sort of bubble of those movies that you're talking about. But when I was in high school, I had a buddy who had moved here from Taiwan, and he was in band, and it wasn't high school; it was actually middle school. Now that I think about it, because I remember it was at Coakley Junior High, and he came in. He was from Hong Kong. He was in percussion, so they added him to the group, and being me and still kind of being a little bit of the middle kid, like I was intrigued by this new person. I wasn't like always the person to be like, hey, let me go introduce myself and all this stuff or whatever. I was somewhat kind of shy, but at the same time, like, this kid named David, his name was David Wong. And, he kind of wanted to do his thing and they kind of like sort of, I think, paired me up with him to kind of like, hey, why don't you help him with, this or that or whatever. I was like, okay, yeah, sure. So we kind of got to talking, he's like, so what do you guys do? And it's like, well, we play basketball and da-da-da-da or whatever. And he's like, are you guys, do you guys watch movies and stuff? We're like, oh yeah, this, that, whatever. And so like over time, we kind of became like kind of better and better friends. Like, like you do, you just kind of hang out and say, hey, you want to come hang out with us and lunch and so on and so on.
Right.
And then that eventually led to us. I remember him having me over on a Saturday because he's like, yeah, I got a computer if you want to play some computer games. And I was like, yeah, sure. And we're playing Wolfenstein and like, Quake or was it Quake? No, it would have been Doom back then.
Right.
And so we're playing games or whatever. And then like, I was like, he had like a VCR and he had some tapes and he's like, oh, you want to watch a movie? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, have you ever heard of like, these movies from Hong Kong? He's like, it's like where I'm kind of from. And I was like, oh, are they in English? And he's like, well, they're dubbed in English. Yeah. And I was like, okay, cool. And so we watched what I would come to find out is like a whole genre of movie that I had never heard of, but it was through the connection of like people telling you, about these movies. And like Hard Boiled is like super, it's basically, you could say, what introduced to the United States like gunkata. And we eventually like, I think the idea of like, don't worry about loading. Don't worry about how the gun actually works. Like, it's more about looking cool than it is about the gun itself.
Right.
And I loved it because there was a certain level of fantasy that came with it, right? Like,
sure.
When people get all their panties in a wad about like, oh, guns and violence and stuff. And it's like, yeah, but it's one thing to see it on TV, but it's another thing when it's like, yeah, that's not how any of that works. Like physics don't work that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's what makes these sorts of movies fun. And so when I found out about The Raid, and this was like I said, in the late 2000s, somebody had told me about it. I'm trying to remember where I heard about it, but they were like, oh man, you got to see this movie. It's like insane. And I was like, okay, cool. So I had to kind of like dig around for it, and I found it. And we had a movie night at the house that we were renting at the time.
Uh-huh.
And speaking of drive-ins, we were like, hey, I have this little like, I don't know, it's like a $70 projector. It's like those little LED ones that you can put a thumb drive in. And I had the movie on a thumb drive, so I put it in there and hooked up some speakers to it. And we went out onto the back porch with a bunch of friends, and we were barbecuing, and we threw it up like on the wall. We even have like a projector screen or anything. It's just like a flat, mostly white wall. You know, we threw it up there.
Yeah.
And because we, I didn't know if it was gonna be good or not. So we kind of threw it up there. You know, we're staying there around. We're watching the movie. Some of us are drinking beer, and we're cooking chicken or whatever. And we're watching this movie, and just through the entire time, I was like, "Holy shit! Like, what is going on? This is insane." And so I kind of miss what I really miss about this movie and the video store in particular is just, man, if this movie had come out during the height of the video store era, like, and I mean, it's part of why we're doing this podcast, right?
Yeah.
Spoiler, we're going to recommend this movie if you've never seen this movie, because these are the sorts of movies that had a huge impact on, like, how people see movies, how it impacted, like, movie culture, down the road. And also, like, letting people know that the influence of, like, film and art overseas is just as, like, powerful as it is here, because this movie is about as, like, I would say it's exactly one of those movies where you're like, as a little kid, you're like, I want to make a movie, and this is what I'm going to do, and it's going to have all these things, and this is how it's going to work. And someone would be like, that's not how movies work. He's like, you know what? I don't care. That's how I'm going to make my movie. Like, if you don't like it, then don't watch it, But, I'm super excited to talk about this because I'm very interested in your perspective being a first-time view for you. But this movie really brings back a lot of good feelings of, like, oh man, you've never heard of The Raid? Well, guess what? You're going to have to sit down, and we're going to have to carve out like 2 hours out of your day today because we're going to watch The Raid.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's so good.
Yeah, man, I was blown away by the fight scene. I want to say fight scenes, but it felt like it was just one long fight.
Sure. Well, I mean, like, the fight choreography, like,
oh my god, dude, I could not.
It's funny when you message me. I didn't want to respond because I was like, just let it sink in.
Yeah,
like,
let it marinate. Let it sink.
I'm gonna make when we're talking about the movie, I'm gonna make a guess on when you sent that text, because, like, there's it's broken up into sections, but I'm guessing at what point were you like, oh, this is when you decided to send me the message. But yeah, no, let's kind of dive into it a little bit so we can talk about some of these things. But
all right.
This movie is it was The Raid is overseas. It was Indonesian. This movie came out in 2012, and it is directed by Gareth Evans.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about, I don't know, like, maybe it's not necessarily a funny thing, but, like, when you talk about, like, stereotypes and things like that, right? Like, when it's like, who made this movie? Whatever, da 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 da. And then you're like, oh, it probably was, this guy or whatever. Obviously the movie is Indonesian, but Gareth Edwards is the most white-looking dude that you would ever imagine. Like, he is not Indonesian. He is, he's not what I think people would imagine after watching this movie. But what I will say about this kid, or I say kid, but he was born in, like, 1980, so he's, like, of our generation. You can see how this movie bleeds, like, VHS, like, Kung Fu era action movie, like, some of the movies we've already talked about, from Chuck Norris to, any Cannon film, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Stallone. Like, this movie encompasses a lot of that, but in a very, like, slick, kind of cool way that, like, I feel was missing up to this point, because I feel like these movies weren't really around until about this point in the early 2000s or late 2000s, early 2010s, when these movies started really, like, rearing their head up, and then started, like, making a real impact into, like, cinema. These names are a little hard to pronounce, but they are familiar faces. So the main character in the movie, Rami, is Iko, I think is how you say his name, Iko. Wallace.
Yeah,
I think is probably how you would say that. Maybe.
What? I'm terrified to chew up these names, but they're.
Yeah, I'll do it. So then let's see, and then
much respect
Jaka,
to these guys.
Oh, dude, yeah. Jaka, who is the, I guess he's the sergeant. He's like the main.
Yeah.
He's like the squad leader, I guess, of this SWAT team. Oh, actually, you know what? I mean, I gotta have to take one step back because we haven't even talked about what the movie's about, even though. I'm pretty sure, like. Yeah, it's pretty. It'll take like like a minute.
Yeah,
I'm very curious
pretty cut and dry because they pretty much give you this. They give you the plot when they're in the truck on their way. He's basically giving him the briefing, and it's pretty much tells you what's about to happen. When they're in the back of the truck. So,
I'm gonna check here real quick. I don't think this movie would be in the Psychotronic video guide. Maybe I'm gonna check here real quick.
Does it have an international section, or is it just movies?
It's just movies, but I don't see anything listed. Well, let me check. We got Rapid Fire, Raising Arizona. I don't think so. No, this one is not in here, so we'll just go with. We'll go with whatever the
IMDb.
Yeah,
IMDb for the win.
Yeah, so that's fine. We'll go with IMDb. IMDb says a SWAT team becomes trapped in a tenement ruined by a ruthless mobster and his army of killers and thugs. And yeah, that's... Yep. I don't even know if the Psychotronic video guide would have a whole lot more than that, because it really isn't a lot more than that.
There's not much to elaborate on that.
So basically, this is just the story of, now there are a couple layers, but not too many. It's the story of basically just a drug, like going to take out a drug lord, you know, in a slum. And that's pretty much it. And seeing that it was in Indonesia, the aesthetic, the look, you know, was, again, probably something that a lot of people maybe weren't used to seeing, because Indonesia wasn't one of those countries that, you know, it's like, oh, movies from Indonesia. Like, no, it was mostly movies from, you know, Japan. And even then, not too many from there.
Yeah. You know? I mean, India, there was a lot of the Bollywood.
Yeah.
I think people may have been like, it's Indonesia. And it just kind of right. You know, just that part of the world, you know.
Yeah. And I think like this specific type of movie, like, I think like any genre, they probably were there, but from an American side or on the U.S. side here, we probably just weren't aware, right? Like there are even movies where it's like, oh wow, there's like horror movies in like the Philippines, and it's like, yeah, I mean, there's all these genres are everywhere. It's just they're not always readily available because they either assume there's no money to be made there, or there's not. How do we infiltrate that market? You know, so I feel like The Raid was in that bubble during this time of like, sure, it's an action movie, but they weren't these types of action movies at that time. So like, how do we infiltrate the US? And I feel like this was one of those, well, the internet told me about it and I kind of found out about it, right? Like there were clips of dudes fighting and you're like, whoa, where's that from? You know, and then word kind of spread.
Yeah.
So the movie, pretty straightforward in the sense of like, the movie starts with like us seeing, Rami, who's waking up and, you know, kind of going through this like sort of videos, like I say, a video store montage of like, pretty disciplined dude. I mean, I get up and I have to stretch for a couple of minutes because we're getting old.
Yeah.
This guy gets up and is already like training and punching a boxing, what do you call it? Like a heavy bag.
Well, I mean, to be fair, he's a 20-year-old rookie. He's got 30, you know, we got 30 years on him. So we got bones popping and cracking and knees aching. Yeah. So he gets up and he's ready to just start, you know.
He's already doing
running
pull-ups.
Drills.
He's doing punching, and he's making breakfast, and then he's telling his wife, you know, he's got to go to work, and he's already in his full SWAT gear. And the movie moves very quickly in that sense. The one thing that, if you're not paying attention, because everything's kind of moving quickly in the beginning, as he's like leaving, or I guess in the morning as he's headed out, he's talking to what appears to be his
It's
parents,
his father,
the mom and dad. Yeah, and he tells his dad that he's gonna bring him back. Doesn't say who or what, but he just sort of says that in passing.
Yeah,
and then we kind of move on.
Yeah, I paid it no mind and didn't realize till it mattered later.
Right.
I was like, wait a minute, didn't he? I was like, oh, but we'll get to that. But when he said that, it seemed odd and out of place. I'm like, why is his dad awake to see him off on he's going to work? Right. But when he said,
and again, I don't know if it's a cultural thing. Like maybe the family sleeps or like not sleeps together, but like they live all together in an area that it's sort of, whether it's in the same home or the same complex. Like maybe that's part of it.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is, as Hispanics, right? Like how many friends and people do we know back home, right, that live near their parents because, that's just part of the routine of how they like to live,
families,
right?
Yeah, we stay close. Yeah.
Yeah. So it could be a very much true. Like a cultural thing. So he talks to his dad. He gets into the thing, and we kind of get this Point Break montage of all the SWAT guys, getting the drill, sort of the drill sergeant of like, we need everybody on their A game today, and we're going to take this guy out, and he's a piece of shit, and there is a little bit of like, it's funny because like this movie is, it's a little rough around the edges in the sense of like the acting or how they set up some of these scenarios, because they're trying to emulate a lot of things that we've seen in movies, right? So these SWAT guys are getting this information about like, oh, we're going to go in, we're going to infiltrate, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and then there's the like some of the guys are sort of shaking, you can see the guns sort of shaking.
Oh, yeah.
And people are like eyeballing it like, oh, are we ready for this? Is this really the best thing to do with like a pretty young crew of SWAT guys? So it comes off a little cheesy because it doesn't, like, I don't want to say the acting of shaking is not good, but there's something about how you do it and how it's effective. Yeah. And here it felt a little blatant, but I think, again, it feels like you're talking about people that are emulating movies that they like. So they're trying to just let you know, like, oh, this is going to be a bad situation, like, things are going to be pretty tough, you know? And so this,
I think they definitely did that to emphasize that there's a lot of rookies in this tactical group.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a 20-man squad, but it was like a good portion of them were new. Like they weren't seasoned veterans. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think the over exaggeration of the guy nervously shaking, holding his rifle, I think it definitely emphasized. And of course, then you have the rookie, Rama is. You can already tell he's a little different because he's stone face, he's ready, he's focused, and he's looking at the other guys going like, "What the fuck,"
Yeah.
And it was kind of noticeable. Like he was. They made that scene, I think, to separate that he's not your typical rookie.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But yeah.
It had a very like World War II sort of feeling where like they're getting ready to jump out of the airplane and they're kind of
or the guys puking on the boats and shit before the landing at D-Day.
The adrenaline.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, again, not to say that that's bad. It was just like there's something about like how I feel like it was paced and put together. But so anyway, like these guys show up. They show up at the slum, and when they get there, there is like a lieutenant there.
Yeah. Lieutenant
Wahoo. Yeah. Wahoo.
Yeah.
And so he's there, and he's the one who's kind of questioning, like, hey, who are all these young guys? Like, what's the deal? Like, you know why we're here, because we got to take this guy out. And he was like, it'll be fine. He's like, well, keep the young guys in the back because I don't want, they're going to get killed. This is a bad situation, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So I would say for the first 10 minutes, this is a pretty standard like action movie of like the cops kind of show up. They're taking out people strategically. Like they take out some of the watch guards. They infiltrate the building, with like the breaking through the locks.
Oh, the lockpick guy,
so they do the lockpick thing, and then they're kind of like they're doing what do you call that when you come into a room in a very tactical way?
Well, they're like stacked at the door, so basically it's called stacking.
Yeah.
And so you got your lead guy, and then they were in two teams, and it was kind of like, one was flanking one way, the other guy, the other team was like I guess you'd call it like your main assault team, and then the other one is your covering team.
Your cover, yeah.
But then the plan was to meet, so like that's how they kind of met up, and they merged back together once they were outside, they kind of merged in the lobby, I guess, or like right at the beginning of the stairs.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, so you kind of, I'd say for the first good 10 minutes, they're going through, they're neutralizing everybody.
Oh, yeah.
They actually go up, I think, to the 5th floor. Like, there's like a little quick montage of just like, first floor is clear, second floor is clear, third floor is clear. Like, they're just kind of like moving up. And at the very beginning, and it's on the cover too, like this building's probably about 20 floors or 15 floors, or actually it's 15. They say that in the movie.
Okay.
So they show them, like, they make their way up to the 5th floor, and then when they get to the 5th floor, they run into, I guess, like a young kid, and like he sees the SWAT team.
Yeah.
And they're kind of like, hey, kid, you stay there, don't move, get on the ground or whatever. And I don't know, this kid's probably like 13 or something.
Oh, yeah.
And so he bolts for the door, and like all the cops are kind of, or the SWAT guys are kind of like, oh, like they don't necessarily run after him because like they're the full spread of the hallway.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't catch him. But he turns and runs to the door, and he heads out there, and he yells to somebody that the police are there. Yeah. And then the lieutenant
takes a
shoots
shot.
the kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, he takes one shot, kills the kid. And I feel like right at that point is when, like, you almost, I guess you could say, or as the young kids would say, that's when the beat drops. Like, because from that point forward,
that was the first round shot.
Yeah. It's the first time.
Yeah, because they were going silent and going knives only, and they were able to keep they had the tactical advantage of being undetected.
Right.
And they were able to just kind of get through the first 5 floors, and everything was copacetic. They were
by the book. Yep.
Yeah. Everything was going great.
Yeah.
So the kid.
And then until the kid gets shot, and then from there, like the warlord guy, I forget which guy he is. There's a bunch of people here. I think he's maybe Budi or Budai, Budi. Actually, I think that is him. I don't remember how they pronounce the name, but so he hears the one gunshot, and then he immediately does the classic, like, we're not alone, or like they're here or whatever. Yeah. And so he gets on the horn and calls up. He's like, we have visitors. I need the neighbors' help, I think is the way he says it.
Oh, yeah. I'll get the neighbors. Yeah.
You see like these dudes come that are like snipers, I guess on the building next door. And then they you see them prepare. And then from that point forward, at least for the next couple of minutes, like they take out the drivers of the truck. They take out the guys that are on the floor. Anybody who's outside or near a window, the snipers quickly start to eliminate all these guys. Yeah. Unbeknownst to the guys on the inside, because they don't realize that that's happening. And
right.
So we see that all sort of happen, and so they sort of round up everybody who's on the outside, and then the guys get up to the 5th floor. They are trying to make their way a little bit further, but then they sort of run into, I guess, their first like roadblock, which is, I guess they're in the main, like, I guess you could say the lobby of the building, like the central area, I guess.
Right.
And they are trying to continue to make their press upward, but I think, if I remember correctly, I think what happens is they come in, and there's another group of dudes that are on the 6th floor up, and now have the advantage of being like, they have the what was it?
The high ground as
oh yeah, that's right. They have the high ground.
Yeah.
And and which that whole sequence is kind of cool, because I guess they're going to try to breach another door, but it's dark from like the 6th floor up. And so they breach the door with
the light. Yeah, he cuts the lights in the building.
Yeah, and so yeah, that's right. The warlord does, and so they're moving to breach a door, and when they breach the door with the shotgun, I guess to like blow the door like handle off or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
it like illuminates the whole floor, and then you can see all the dudes up above, which again was like a really cool like sequence where like you see the shadow of all the dudes that have guns.
yeah.
Because the
That was
shotgun,
that was well shot. That scene
yeah,
was cool.
yeah, and I feel like that is, I mean, that's the probably the true mic drop or beat. Or that's when the beat drops because the sixth floor just like eliminates everybody on that floor, and then there's like a short montage of just like they now have the advantage because they know that these guys are here. The guys on the sixth floor take out the dudes on the fifth floor. There's other dudes that are getting taken out. Like it's just, it quickly turns into what was very strategic up to that point.
Yeah.
Just all goes to shit like
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah.
And now like the groups are broken up, or the squads are broken up.
Yeah.
They don't have access to each other, and then the I think it's Jaka
Yeah.
tells the lieutenant, he's
Yeah.
like, hey, you need to call for backup.
Yeah, we need backup
this is
now.
bad.
Like this, yeah, this is getting bad real quick.
Yeah, and the lieutenant tells him like, yeah, we're on our own. Like he's like, there is no backup coming.
Yeah.
They don't act. This isn't actually sanctioned.
Yeah, yeah. When they first introduced the lieutenant and just the way he was behaving outside leading into the breach, I thought there was something up with that dude. So when it came out that, because they were like, he's like, I can't call backup, and the sergeant Jaka's like, why the fuck can't you call backup? Like what, this is bad. They've already, and then he come to find out that this lieutenant, and I was trying to figure out what was his angle up to this point, because like he was like, as he was his stalling and shit, I was like, oh, this is like he's involved on the inside somehow. I don't know how, but but then when he was like, yeah, there's no backup coming, like, and I was like, oh, this motherfucker went, solo, like he's doing his own thing and took this squad with. I was like, man, this is not good.
Yeah, and again, it's like a really good scenario, right? Like, because in most movies you'd be like, oh, where's the backup? Why wouldn't they do this, do that? It's like, well, A, they're in the slums. Nobody wants to go down there. The cops probably don't want to go down there. You get like a cop that's like a corrupt cop. So now it's like worst case scenario for everybody involved. And so it really is like it's a no-win situation, like really for everybody. And so like the craziness sort of happens. There's fighting, people are shooting, they're killing the SWAT guys because now they have the advantage of being, I guess, on the home field, because now they know how to get to these guys.
Yeah, yeah.
And then like they retreat into like, I guess, like a larger room where they're trying to reassemble everybody who's in there, and you can hear all the dudes on the outside, and it's a really awesome sequence because I remember when this movie came out and I watched it a ton the first couple years that it was out, but they run into this one room where they're regathering. One guy's shot. The one guy, there's one guy in the very beginning who's like sort of harassing one of the tenants who's there, who's actually a normal guy.
Yeah.
He was just trying to get medicine up to his wife. And one guy was like giving him shit, and then the main character, Rama or Rami, he kind of helps the guy who lives there, and it's like, hey, just, be cool. But so that guy who was being a bit of an ass, like he's been shot. Some other people are being shot, so they're bringing him in. They're basically like, I guess, creating I don't know what is the term for that, like a rally point, or like they're
It's
they're
like
effectively trying to attend to the wounded, but they're also trying to like take stock of everything. But the dudes are right outside the door, just banging on the door, and
I think there's a dude who tries to, like, he's kind of trying to assess what's going on outside, and the sniper takes him out.
Oh, that's right, the sniper's
like there is quick. Like, you can't be by the windows, nothing. I mean, they are fucked. Yeah, and so the only way out is through the door that they've now barricaded, and there's a like axe wielding gun toting guy, like
like the entire floor is there. Yeah. Oh, and that's right. We missed one thing. Kind of going just to go back a little bit. When the lights get turned off, that's when the warlord, drug lord guy, makes a PA announcement about, hey, there's SWAT in the building.
We have visitors.
anybody who helps, like, I will like give you incentive. Because you live here under me, and anybody who houses them, well, I'm just going to kill you. So he effectively turns the entire building on the SWAT dudes. Like,
he's like, if you bring me ahead, you have permanent residence.
Yep.
And it was like, have a good, have fun. That was the worst. Like, that was like the, when he's kind of telling them, he's like, and remember, have fun. Yeah. And then he just cuts off the PM like, oh shit.
It's a really great scenario. Like, it's very over the top, but I love, this is one of those ideas where it's like you're sitting around and you're having some drinks or some smokes or whatever, and then you're kind of like, it'd be cool if an entire building of dudes with guns, or after blah 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 or whatever. That's kind of how this feels. But to get back to where they were, the reason I love this sequence is the guy goes up to the window, he gets shot, they're trying to barricade the door, they're trying to keep people coming in. The Rami guy, or Rama, is the guy who's like looking around trying to figure out how they're going to get out, and it's a hardwood floor, and he realizes like, oh, it sounds hollow over here, so he starts like chopping away with it, like with the axe. Yeah, that I guess they had their siege axe or whatever. And then they jump down a floor, and then it turns out that floor is full of a bunch of dudes. Yeah. And they also are fighting, to everybody down there as well, too. But what in that particular sequence, and I don't know if you remember, but like it's a cool sequence because you see him jump down, and then the camera follows with him, and then the camera goes down there, and then immediately you're like, oh shit, there's like even more dudes. Yeah.
As soon as the camera pans up, there's already fighting going on, and it's like, that was a cool camera where it's like it goes with you into like, it's like you're jumping in.
What's cool about that particular scene, because they show it in the extras and making of, they were doing a lot of techniques that I guess a lot of people hadn't really thought about doing, or weren't really doing as much as you would actually assume, because it's like, well, that's a little too DIY for us. We're the cinematographer's got to do this film a certain way, but that is literally a guy with a camera, like not jumping down the hole, but he reaches down the hole, and there's another guy down there who grabs the camera from the hole and then takes it over and then keeps going.
Oh, that's outstanding.
When I saw that, I was like, oh man, that is brilliant. Like that is
so budget friendly cinematography.
Yeah. Yes, that is exactly. And because they only had like one or two cameras to work with, they didn't have like a big old like, okay, we'll have somebody start filming down here and then we'll do a cut or whatever. Like they had to make the most of what they had. Because I mean, if you look at this movie, at a certain point you realize like how budget friendly this movie really is, because it's like pretty sure I've seen that hallway again and again and again, and there's a lot that's being reused in the set. Yeah, but it's totally fine.
Move the camera a little bit, and it makes it look like exactly. Move it from one wall to the other.
Yeah, but it blends in because everything else is so good. Yeah, but like this being like probably like the 10th time I've watched this movie, like I start to pick up on some of those things, but I don't care because like the DIY-ness of this movie is so good. Like those sequences and tricks and things that they're doing, because there's a lot of CG. Like all the CG blood, all the bullet impacts, like all that, you can tell it's not very real. You can tell that the guys are not really firing most of these guns because they're kind of doing the like the like their hands are kind of moving more.
Yeah, they're doing the shaking of the gun with their hands. Yeah, rather than it's not recoil. It's them doing it. Yeah,
right. But again, I kind of like that because it adds a little bit of fantasy to the movie.
Oh,
because
it's easy to forget that,
right?
Yeah. It's easy to not notice it when you're into the what's happening. Mm-hmm. It's easy that just disappears. You don't notice the guy shaking the rifle. He's there's a fight going on. So
and it's all so well put together that it's like those things don't matter.
Yeah, no,
but. I think to what you were talking about earlier, because you're like, man, this movie seems like one big giant fight. This is the end of what I would consider Act 1 of this movie, which is when they're in that room and they're trying to get all the guys like to back off, and they're trying to, like I said, regather and regroup. Yeah. That's when Rama, again, it's kind of like, he grabs the propane tank, throws it in the refrigerator. They push it up against the door, and he throws a grenade in there, and then pushes the door so that the blast. I mean,
they open the door to the
technically, it's not how grenades
and,
work, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. But I get what the concept was.
Yes.
So I give it to him,
Oh, man, I'll give it to him all day.
Yeah, it just blows it. I guess, I don't know.
It blows the door out.
Yeah. I mean, maybe refrigerators in Indonesia, in Jakarta, are more steel frame
reinforced.
Than the aluminum shit we buy here. But
true.
like because all of the explosion goes out the room door. Yeah. To knock out all the guys behind
in the hallway,
the ones trying to get in. Yeah. That was it looked good. I mean, I'm not. I mean,
no, I'm no shame at all. I'm just like, I was just like, you know what? That's like the kind of movie that I want to see, where it's like, yeah, that's what we're gonna do. And and if anybody in my movie watching party is like, that would never work, I'd be like, get out. Like, yeah. I don't need you here. Like, I don't need you or to question anything that's happening in this movie right now. And so, I feel like when that happens, that's kind of the end of Act 1 of this movie. Like,
there is a break there where everybody's catching their breath because they're recovering from the explosion.
You actually get a little bit of an understanding of like you now understand where they're at, the types of people that they're up against, who the drug dealer guy is, who our main like SWAT guys are that are left, because they've pretty much eliminated. Probably they're down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's probably like only 6 or 7 guys left.
Yeah, at that point, 20.
There is not much left.
Yeah, I mean, because there was maybe a third of the group stayed outside, because that's what got taken out, plus the drivers. So they didn't come in. They didn't start ascending up the stairs with the full squad to begin with. So when they get ambushed from the top, from the 6th floor, they take out another good chunk of that. So all that's left is like I guess the guys that got taken out in the hallway were kind of like the Star Trek red shirt guys. Yeah, because they didn't really have names.
Yep.
But then the lieutenant and the sergeant and of course Rama, the jackass, I forgot his name. The main players are the ones that are left. So I think there was like 6. But like one or two is wounded. It's already, the lieutenant's kind of like still like fuck,
trying to he's trying to figure out his strategy.
Yeah. I think by then he's already doesn't he already at that point he's already confessed that he's kind of
I don't think yet, because so the start of, I think what is probably the start of the second act, what we notice is there are 2. So we have the main drug lord guy, and he has his 2, like his number 1 and his number 2.
Yeah, his lieutenants basically.
Yeah, his lieutenants right next to him, and he's the drug lord guy is kind of like, hey, I need these guys to be taken out, and of the 2 guys, you have the short guy and the tall guy.
Yeah, Mad Dog is the short guy.
Mad Dog is one of them. Yeah, and I forget who the other one is.
Andy.
Is it Andy?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So Andy's the tall guy. And
I think he's the guy in the briefing. They're the guy. He's like the accountant, or he's like the financial guy. But it's like, in the briefing they're like, he's the guy who's, they were warned about Mad Dog, but then the other guy, he's like, well, he's the guy that just does the books, but don't turn your back on him because he will kill you. Right. So he was kind of, I guess, described to be the less crazy one. I guess he's like
of the lieutenants.
Of the lieutenants, he's the lesser evil. Because Mad Dog has the name Mad Dog for a fucking reason. Because holy shit,
we come to find out. Yeah. And so he basically says, hey, we need to get this under control. And then Mad Dog actually is the one who's like, no, we got it under control. Like our people got this. And so then they send out, while Rami and the other guys or Rama are recovering, they send out, which I guess is like the next subgroup. It is very video game-ish because like you have wave or like level 1, and then level 2 is the machete gang, which is like literally just the dudes that show up with machetes. They have no guns. They're just kind of walking around through the aftermath of all the people that are dead. And any cop that seems to be sort of kind of alive, they just butcher him with the machete and then just kind of walk on. And they are now on the hunt for the leftover people. And they have sort of been split up and were divided. So like the lieutenant and his guy, and I think like Jaka have gone one way, and then Rama and the other guy who's injured, they go another way.
Bowo. Okay, that's his name. Bowo. He's the one that's injured. The one, the douchebag cop in the beginning.
Yeah.
Being the asshole.
So they have gone off in another direction, and I think that's where I said sort of Act 2 starts, because I guess the assumption is, but they never really explain it, but like basically we're out of ammo by this point. Like all the bullets have been used by the SWAT guys.
Yeah.
They never, I don't know if they fully say it, but it's one of those like, it's just sort of implied because there's so much gunfire at the beginning that now all of a sudden we're decided not to use our guns anymore.
Well, and I think maybe because everything was like there was a lot of the explosion of the refrigerator propane explosion. It seems like it kind of got everybody discombobulated. Yeah. Like a lot of things were lost in because they did take some hit, the blowback.
Yeah.
Because all of them were like knocked on the ground, and there was, crap everywhere, debris, so I think a lot of things were just kind of lost. And yes, they did use up most of their ammo in the hallway gunfight. So yeah, I think that's when Rama and Bowo are, and I didn't understand why they were choosing to go upstairs while the other guys. They were looking for that guy in particular. Yeah. They were looking from the tenant from the very beginning. Yeah. But at the moment, I was like, why are they still going up? Like at this point, it's like I would think you'd be trying to make your way back down or somehow, but then when they come to I think it's listed Gofar is the name of the gentleman that was getting medicine to his wife. And it's weird because I think Rama asked him, what apartment are you going to? And he said like 627 or something. And I think maybe, and then it clicked later. I was like, oh, that's where he's trying to go, because he remembered the guy's apartment number. Because obviously he's got the injured guy, so.
Right, and he just needs a place to like store him or get him out of the way.
Yeah, he's got to get him treated.
Yeah, and then so like this leads up to a sequence where the machete guys they're looking around, and they see Rama and Boyo, and then like a fight sequence happens in the hallway. Yeah, and like so it's funny because I feel like in rewatching it today, I would probably say like this particular fight, since I don't know if you've ever seen or heard of the movie Old Boy. No. It's like a Korean sort of thriller kind of action movie. It's not in the same vein as this. It's a very disturbing movie in the subject matter, I will say, but it has a ton of like kung fu action.
Okay. You said that it's called Old Boy?
Old Boy. Okay. Yeah.
I'm gonna write
that
down.
Not the one by Spike Lee, because he remade it. But if you ever watch the other one, you watch it alone. Don't watch that with anybody, because like I said, it's a little disturbing with the subject matter.
Well, yeah, if it's worse than this, then I have to watch it by myself, because after this movie, Karen was like, that's too much violence for me. I can't. And I was like, that was great.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Old Boy, without spoiling anything, it's partly the violence, but there's other stuff in there that's not so for all viewing audiences. But what I was going to say is like, so this particular scene when the machete gang shows up and they start fighting in the hallway with like Rama, this whole sequence where they're fighting and so is this the point where you sent that text message to me when you were like, the
No.
fight choreography is insane?
No, not yet.
It was not on that sequence?
No.
Okay. Was it at the end sequence when they're fighting Mad Dog?
Yes.
Okay.
That was like the
One of
longest
the two.
fight sequence
Yeah.
that I was like, this is still
Yeah.
going. Holy
So,
fuck.
what I'll say about the hallway sequence when they're fighting the machete gang, that sequence I feel like has influenced film going forward, from everything from Marvel movies to a lot of action movies, because what I really love about this movie, just in general, is like this movie does something that hadn't been done in a very long time with regards to like action and action sequences, because we had already had the Bourne Identity and a couple other things, and I feel like American film really doesn't do action very well because they tend to they do all these cuts, like lots of cuts, like they'll do all these like fighting sequences and they're cutting very quickly, and it's very disorienting to the viewer. And I feel like the master of all of this, and I've seen plenty of video essays about this, which is like Jackie Chan was really like the master of all this, because he would have one camera set up and the camera would only slightly move so that you can always see the action.
Yeah, keep
they're
them
always
centered.
in front of you. Yeah, you keep them centered, or even if they're like running across a room, they don't cut. The camera just kind of pans a little bit but keeps them in frame. And while that is much harder to do because you have to get it all in one take, or you can't really edit those together.
Yeah.
The Raid does this in a similar way. It doesn't necessarily always have like one long cut, but the cuts are much, much longer. The sequence of seeing them fight is for a lot longer. And then when they do cut to another like camera or another frame, or a frame setup, it has a purpose. Like, it's like this guy's taking all his punches and he's kind of falling back a little bit, and now there's an opportunity to cut, and now you can do it, and you as the viewer are not like, wait, who the hell's punching who? Like, it's moving too fast. Like, you always knew who was in the fight in the Raid.
Yeah.
And that hallway sequence, I feel like, shows that off really, really well. Like, that whole sequence is just like, man, like, Marvel should be thankful to these guys, because these guys showed, I feel like, filmmakers, this is how you film action. This is how you do action, because this is storytelling. Like, it's still storytelling in the sense of, like, sure, it is fighting, but you are telling the story of like who's winning, who's losing, the importance of this and that. You're not losing track of things because there's like 50 edits, like within a span of like, 2 or 3 minutes, there's probably just a dozen edits in this whole sequence, because you get to see the full impact. Because it ends with like when he's fighting that one dude and he pulls him like into the, like, he sort of does
the
that.
door's broken.
Yeah.
And he pulls him in with him so that his neck lands on the
threshold or whatever.
The door's all kind of busted and cut up, and it's
And
like all kinds of jaded edges and shit.
Right, and they don't cut away from that.
No, no, not at all.
They keep it. And then the only time it cuts is when he's about to get up, or when like the fight's over, right?
Right.
But you get the full impact of everything in that sequence, and it feels way more effective than the Bourne Identity or a lot of other movies that were like, Bad Boys or movies like that, where it's like that the action's just cut too fast, and it kind of makes you almost sick because there's too much camera movement,
Yeah, I dude, man, these sequences, especially like, I mean, it was all happening in a apartment hallway, and it just seemed like, I mean, I was blown away. I mean, I know, like when I sent you the text, it was during obviously the climactic, fight, but that was still awesome, and I really gotta wonder. I had to look because John Wick. Hold on.
Oh yeah. I think I know where you're going.
Yeah, John Wick came out like 3-4 years after this, or 3 years after this.
Yep.
There's a lot of influence.
Oh yeah.
Like they had to have watched this movie for inspiration.
We have no John Wick if the Raid, like, never if the Raid was ever made, we'd never have John Wick, because like I mean, and to be fair, like John Wick was because the stunt choreographer from The Matrix was friends with Keanu Reeves, and they built like this really good friendship. And he was like, "Hey, we should do this movie, or we should do a movie that I want to make because, like, as a stunt guy, I want an opportunity to be a director, and I would love to direct you." And I'm pretty sure the two of them were probably smoking a joint and were like, "Hey, we should watch this movie called The Raid," and then like, and then we can like, I feel like we can make a movie like this because that is the one thing about this movie is like everybody who gets hurt, they show it. Like they are limping, they have the pain, like they're fighting through the pain.
Yeah.
They're going through all those things as it happens. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like there is no John Wick at all without like The Raid. Like period.
Yeah. Yeah, that was right away when these fight scenes kind of started progressing. And like you said, I guess I didn't really pay attention, but yeah, I guess the character progression goes beyond just, some kind of arc. Because I mean, like there's progression in the injuries. Like, Rama's getting. I mean, he's getting kicked back and cut.
Oh yeah.
I mean, so they're getting constantly like you can see them kind of like I guess like you're like in a video game, right? Like you see like the health bar keeps getting a little.
Right.
You take on a mini boss and your health bar goes down a little bit. You survive, but your health bar is at half.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's what do you call it? Like, you actually feel tired the same way that the people on the screen feel tired, right? Like,
oh Jesus, yeah.
They are showing it, and I feel like in John Wick, you also get that. You also get the like, he's old, he's tired, he's getting beat up.
Yeah,
and
he limps away from the fight.
Right. And even though they're winning, it's still like, well,
it came at a cost.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's coming at some level of a cost here. It's not superhero is I think the best way to sort of say that's fair. Right? Yeah. It's not.
It does give it a little bit of like reality. The uniform's jacked up, and there's he gets cut in the face, and he's you can see he's visibly beat up. Because right. I mean that they're fighting every freaking minute.
Yeah, I think yeah, it is definitely one of those things where it's like, actually, as a matter of fact, so I assume you've seen John Wick 1, 2, 3, and 4, right?
I think I have. I just haven't seen the last one, but I've seen 1, 2, and 3.
3. Okay, so you maybe because I had already seen The Raid and I was very excited about this, and so you probably didn't pick up on this, but in John Wick 3, Mad Dog, I want to say Mad Dog, and I forget who he's with. It may be one of his other sidekicks, but they are in John Wick.
Is that the when he's fighting the two guys in the glass area? Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And that is very much.
I had a feeling. I'm not surprised.
And I was super excited when I was reading like, oh, they're gonna make a John Wick 3, and I was kind of like, that's fine, I'll watch it. I'm sure. And then they were like, oh, and the dude from The Raid is gonna be in it. I was like, oh man, I'm all on board. Like I'm all in. Like, when's this movie coming out? It isn't out soon enough. If the guys from The Raid are in it, because I want to watch it. And they actually talk about that because the guy who plays Mad Dog, I guess Yayan. I don't know how you say his last name, Rouhani. He's like a stunt choreographer. I mean, he did all the stunts for this movie, but that's like his thing in Hollywood. He's done a lot of stunt choreography. And so when I saw him in John Wick 3, I was like, oh man. And they even like when they were going to fight him, that's that whole sequence where like he sort of he kind of says like, it's an honor to fight you, Mr. Wick.
Yeah. Yep.
And like they even cut him some slack where when they're fighting, he's kind of give him the, hey, just give me a second. You've kind of, the two of you beating the shit out of me. And they're like, okay, it's cool. They kind of like back off. If I'm not mistaken though, they don't die, or he doesn't kill them. I think they get away, because I was just like...
Yeah, I think he leaves them there. He's just like, he leaves them at the end. Yeah,
and it's funny because these guys, like Aiko, who Rama and Mad Dog, Yaya, or Yayan, they actually were also listed as they were going to be in the reboot, or not the reboot, but in Star Wars. With when they announced that they were going to do Force Awakens or whatever, the first of the new trilogy.
Right.
And I was just like, oh man, like, are there going to be like raid Jedis, like dudes that like, with Kung Fu, sort of technique?
Right.
Man, they totally wasted an opportunity there. Like, cause they're in the movie. I don't know if you've seen that Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
It's when Han Solo and Chewie are like, they get into like a whole thing about, they get called out for smuggling, and they were kind of like one group he was stealing from one group and stole from another group, and then like
right.
Those creature things.
Yeah, he's kind of
The two guys from the raid are in that sequence. They're in the gangs.
Oh, okay.
And so it's only like a cameo, but I was like, dude, how could you not have Jedis that like have like the abilities of these dudes? Like, what a wasted opportunity.
Yeah, like martial arts Jedis.
Yeah, I'll never forgive J.J. Abrams for that, or whoever was involved in that decision. It's like, come on, man. Like, you got the raid, man. Like,
there was a lot of talent there that they just used as a thug
cameo.
number 3.
Yeah, exactly. Because I was like, I knew who they are. I know what they are capable of doing. So yeah. Anyway, I guess back to the raid, just to kind of round it out. Yeah, basically. So I think like Act 2 kind of plays itself out, which you see a lot more hand-to-hand combat basically from this point. And we also learn, this is actually when we do learn that the lieutenant,
yeah.
Well, that's right. We learned that Andy is the brother of Rama.
Yep. And
they meet up, and he's kind of like, giving him the whole spiel, like, in again, a kind of a weird way. It's like, Dad wants you home. Like, sort of like, mom and Dad wants you home.
Yeah, that was a long way to be like, yeah, you need to come home.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's like, what the hell are you doing here? He's like, what are you doing here?
Yeah. He's like, this is my job. And he's like, this is my job, So, yeah, those two guys meet up, but also we learn that the lieutenant, I think tells, Jaka about like, oh yeah, this is not legit. This is not on the books. Like,
yeah,
this is like, this is not good. This is not bad.
Yeah, there's a lot of cops on this guy's payroll,
right?
Including me.
Yeah, and so
I was like, "Oh, you asshole!"
Yeah, and so that's when Jaka's kind of like, right now my priority is just getting whoever's left out of here alive. Or no, actually, as a matter of fact, I can't remember if it's him. No. Yeah, so his priority is just getting people like basically alive, and then that's the first time that we see Mad Dog in action, which kind of rounds out the end of Act 2 because...
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he comes across Sergeant Jaka. Yeah,
Jaka and
that's right.
And Mad Dog fight. So This is also like another big climax, sort of in the rhythm of how this movie moves, because up to this point we know very little, if nothing, about Mad Dog other than his name's Mad Dog and like you shouldn't mess with him. But he's like quick because he had a gun on Jaka and could have shot him, but he's like, no. He's like, I like doing it, this is what I'm good at with my hands. Like, and so he does the whole taking off the shirt, kind of sizing him up. And Mad Dog is like a tiny dude compared to everybody else in this movie. I don't know how tall he is, but he can't be, like 5'7" maybe? Probably. He's probably like 5'7" if we were to assume that everybody else is about like, 5'10", 6 feet, or whatever.
Yeah. Maybe. I mean, they're supposed to be SWAT guys, so they're like your prototypical
bigger dudes.
I figure they got to be about 6 foot dudes. Yeah. So Mad Dog was considerably shorter than Jaka.
Yeah, that is a pretty epic fight between the two of those guys. And you really like, man, the first time I saw this movie and the first time I saw Mad Dog just kind of go like all out, I was just like, oh shit, like, it is on. Like, this guy is no joke. And watching it with Denise, the one thing that she called out, and I've actually heard from these guys because I've seen some of their other like short films. He was the choreographer for a lot of the fight scenes, and a lot of it wasn't like super rehearsed like for weeks and days or whatever. It was literally like, okay, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do these techniques. We're gonna fight, whatever, da 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 da, and then we go to the next thing, and we're just gonna like, we're just gonna film it. We're gonna do it two or three times, and then we're just gonna kind of go at it. And the fact that they move at that speed, that they're moving and punching, is kind of incredible, to be honest. Like, you would think that was like weeks and weeks of rehearsal, but really, in reality, it was probably like within the day, if not like a day or two. They like figured out what they were gonna do and then filmed it.
Man,
like,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think that by these sequences. I mean,
no.
but yeah, the speed that these guys are. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, maybe it's possible that they like recorded. No, but no, it doesn't even look like it's sped up. It looks.
I thought the same thing too. Yeah.
It looks normal speed, but fast as shit.
Yes.
And just the movements and defensive and I mean, man, dude,
yeah.
I have not seen choreography like this.
Yeah, and it was funny.
It's amazing.
It's funny you say that, because I was like, man, they have to be, because you can crank, when you're editing, you can crank it up 5%, 10%, but it always gives away, the things that are always giving it away are like eye blinks and like other little mannerisms that just look unnatural, because they just like, maybe your hands are moving faster, but like you also don't blink that fast, and then when you speed it up, you can see those things.
Right.
That is not happening, because when I was watching it, I was thinking the exact same thing, and then I was like, nope, that looks like regular speed. Like I'm not seeing any like weird animated things that don't seem or that seem out of place. But the one thing I love about this whole sequence when he's fighting Jaka is like, you get this real like WWE sort of thing where his finishing move is like the neck crack.
The neck break. Yeah.
Yeah. And like he's trying to like do it to Jaka when he's beating the crap out of him, and then he's kind of doing the, like, no,
he's
I've
trying to
enough.
Fight him off.
Yeah. And then like that's how the whole fight sequence ends, with him, giving him the head twist. And then the rest of the gang has now retreated to or they've now made the decision that the remaining SWAT guys, they're like, our only way out at this point is we need to just go to the main drug lord guy, basically hold him hostage and use him as our bargaining chip to get out. So they were like, we need to go up. Like, we need to go up and get out. And at this point, like, I believe Jaka is already dead. Rama doesn't know that they've been double-crossed by the lieutenant. He just, because the only person that knew that was Jaka. Jaka's now dead. So now there's only 3 SWAT guys left. There's the lieutenant, Rama, Bowo, and there's like, I guess whoever the other guy was.
There's one other guy. Yeah, there was
red shirt, I guess.
Yeah.
He was unfortunately the last red shirt that was with them. And so that's their plan. They're like, we're just going to go charge, go get the drug lord. He's on the 15th floor. We'll go from there. And then that kind of is the end of Act 2, because then there's a big fight sequence in a drug lab as they're trying to make their way up to the final floor. So it ends in a big drug warehouse-ish kind of place or whatever. It's funny because that's when I was like I was watching that sequence going, this has to have been sped up. But then, because all these things are happening, but then I watched a lot of it. I'm like, no, because the explosions and the things getting kicked off, like they all seem normal speed. So
yeah,
I don't think any of this is being sped up. These guys are just that fast. Like,
that makes sense. Yeah, because like all the stuff getting kicked around, nothing looked fast. The inanimate stuff looked, shit was falling,
right,
normal speeds, everything, and so the guys are just fast around other shit that's happening, and it's just like, man,
yeah,
it's just the fighting on the table and that is shit. I'm still blown away, dude. I can't.
Yeah, and then honestly, like the last part of this movie, I mean, there's more that happens, and we learn more about this and that. But I mean, let's not kid anybody. Like, that is the end of the second act, and really the only thing left in the third act is now Andy has been found out that he's helping out the SWAT guys, even though he's not. The drug lord now knows this, and
because he's got cameras everywhere.
Yeah, he's watching
in the building.
he's watching, and so basically it all leads up to a big showdown between Rama, which we're waiting on, between Rama and Mad Dog and Andy. In this case, like the three
That's
of
right.
them are now going to
That's
fight.
right.
The drug lord, he meets up with the bad lieutenant. They make their way out, and then that sort of resolved itself at the back end of the movie. But to be honest, nobody really cares because like it's really about, okay, we are now waiting for the ultimate like three-way. If there was ever a throuple that we wanted to see on screen, this is it. Because like
Yeah.
the fact that like Andy and Rama are like standing there, and then like Mad Dog comes between them and sort of is like, hey, let's space it out. Let's do this right. And he gets between the two of them.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I was trying to remember. I was like, how were they together? But that was Mad Dog was punching this because after they found out that Andy was helping.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
When
yeah.
when the three cops are going up, he hears a punching
Right.
through a
He's
door.
torturing. Yeah.
And he's
Mad Dog.
torturing Andy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mad Dog is torturing Andy. He's got him chained, his hands up.
Right,
And he's
right.
just punches to the gut.
Right.
And then that's that. I was trying to remember. I was like, how did they end up where they did end up? So then Rama just opens the door and just like very,
Casually.
Wild West, just ooh, and then he walks in and there he is. And it's funny because Mad Dog wanted that shit because he's the one who fucking lets the chain down.
Right. Oh yeah.
Yeah. He's like, okay, he's here. The party can start now.
Right.
So
yeah.
he lets the chain down and he lets Rama take Andy off the chains.
Right.
And while he's kind of like he's just standing there like getting ready, he's like, all right, he's just like kind of cracking knuckles and he's like,
Yep.
I was like, oh man, this dude,
Man.
like,
yeah.
he was just that's what he wanted. That's what he wanted.
Yeah. I don't think there is anything we can say to describe how epic this fight is, other than the first time I ever watched this movie. And again, keep in mind, like it was on the side wall of our house. And so it wasn't like a great picture and it wasn't a real bright picture, but we're all watching this like at the end, just kind of like, oh my God, like this little guy just will not stop. And then we were like, he has to be on crack. And we were like, this, he
That's
must
what
just,
I thought, that he was like, he's got to be drugged up.
yeah, we were like, oh, he's just like the little crackhead, because like, I don't know how many times they throw this guy like across the room or back break him or throw him this way or that way. Like he'd just get right back up and literally just kind of go right back at it. And it literally takes, which again, if you're gonna be that person that's gonna call it the physics of like, that's not how that would work. But he gets stabbed in the neck with
with the shards of the fluorescent bulb.
Right. Which I was like,
we
would have just
we made the
crumbled.
same comment. Yeah. Me and Karen were like, that's some really strong LED lighting there, because that should have shattered.
Yeah, oh yeah, that one piece there for whatever reason really strong. Like, and I don't know if you caught, but there's like blood shooting out of it as he was kind of like moving around or whatever.
Yeah, as he's fighting around.
Yeah. And it's like, dude, what is it going to take to kill this guy? This is unreal. Man, that sequence, is.
I want to go back and time how long that fight sequence alone was.
It has to. I think so. When that fight sequence starts, there is 20 minutes left in the movie. That sequence has got to be at least like 12. At least 12 minutes. Like,
I was guessing it was over 10. Yeah, I have it rented on Amazon for 48 hours. I'm gonna go back and watch it after this.
Yeah,
because I was like, I'm gonna go to that scene.
Yes,
just to time how long that fight scene is, because that has to be the longest fight scene on film.
Yeah,
like just a single. I mean, because you can argue that the whole movie's a fight scene,
sure.
but that particular, I guess. These guys versus this guy, like in a room, final battle, I don't know that there's a longer fight scene.
I think yes and no. I guess the winner would probably be the movie They Live with Roddy Piper. I don't know if you remember that movie, the one with the glasses. So there is a fight sequence in there that. It says it's only, so that fight sequence is roughly about 7 minutes. And it's just one fight. Like it just kind of, and it's almost comical, like how long it is. But yeah, you're right. I think like this fight sequence may actually be longer. But yeah, I'd be curious to find out what you find out how long this fight is, because man, it goes on for a long time and it's just so good. And again, like there aren't a ton of cuts. You get to watch them actually like fight it out and duke it out, and they're throwing each other every other way. You know, there's a couple sequences where they're clearly using like cables for like some effect
for the toss.
Yeah, but not a ton of it, and it doesn't take away from anything. It's just, it is. Well, the last thing I'll say about this movie, because the movie basically is over after this. Like they leave, and it's like, yeah, don't be in a gang, kids. You know, like don't do what this guy's doing, and don't disappoint your parents.
It does kind of suck, because I will say at the end it was after all the shit they went through, I was kind of disappointed that Andy chose to stay behind.
Yeah, but I feel,
and not, he was like, "This is my world. Like you, if I go with you back to your world outside these walls, you don't know what's going to happen to me, because he's a criminal. He knows he's a criminal." And then I did think for a second, I was like, "Well, there's a job opening now, because they killed the drug lord.
They need a super for the building.
So I was like, well, I guess he'll run the show now, because there was only there was only one position ahead of him as far as promotion,
right? And
it's open now, so I guess I can see that. But I was kind of hoping for the happy ending.
Sure,
like
I kind of like I sort of like the somewhat realistic ending, right? Of just like, yeah, this whole thing's bad. Like none of this is good. Nothing really effectively like resolved, other than like he can tell his parents like, yeah, he's still alive at the very least. But that's it. What I will say though about just the movie in general is like this movie, especially with Gareth Edwards, who directed it, I feel is like the combination of, this was bound to happen, and I'm glad to see it, because like, kids like us of the 80s, and this Gareth Edwards is, from the 80s, like all the movies we watched and all like the fantasy of filmmaking, and there's so many dramatic, like when people get shot, in this movie they kind of do the flailing arms, or they do the like when they get punched, and it's like, oh, like I'm kind of falling to my knees, but I can still put in one more punch. I mean, I can't tell you how many times when we were kids that was us, right? Where we're like acting like I'm on my last breath, but then it's like, but wait, and then like I somehow get this resurgence of energy, and whether it was the WWF or other action movies we watched, like there was something very fun about those movies, right? Where it's just like you like to play that part where you're like you fall on your knees, but then you can still have the strength to like take the punch and then turn the guy's wrist and like turn it on him, and now somehow you're in charge or whatever. This movie is like a culmination of those sort of feelings in those movies, but like put together in a way that is just like, I would say that The Raid is probably one of the most important films in the past like 25 years. You can critique it for its quality and its maybe lack of acting or whatever, but I guess what I mean from that is just, it's still good storytelling. It's still good. It's really good cinematography for what it is. The fight choreography is amazing. Like I feel like it encompasses, like, not to say that all films need to be action films, but it has the elements that do the things that is the most important thing in cinema to not do, is like make a boring movie, right? And at no point is this movie like boring or drags or whatever. I mean, it's always moving, and I really think like Marvel would be in a very bad way if it didn't have this movie to use as a cornerstone for like, oh, that's how we should do fighting, right? Where it's like more close quarter, like kind of hand-to-hand combat, but like, because it's not Krav Maga or anything like that, but it's a form of like fighting that just looks cooler than it probably is effective. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure, there's lots of those videos where they'll have like a professional such and such watch a movie and go like, it's not really how we would do it. And it's like, yeah, I don't care. Like, that's not why I watch these movies, right? Like, maybe if it's like every now and then, that's fine if it, depending on the tone of the movie. But I think for like a movie like this and the type of action, like I don't think Marvel movies would have this level of action if it wasn't for like the Raid. But I don't know. Do you have any last thoughts on the movie before we go to judgment?
I was just. It's funny when you were talking about the last gasp of energy. It made me think of like the years that we did watch wrestling. Makes me wonder if Gareth Evans was a wrestling fan.
Oh, dude!
Because of the whole, you know what I mean? Like the whole, like you perfectly. I pictured what you were saying, like you were describing it perfectly. Where it's like, the wrestler's like kind of gets kicked and he's down and then it's like over. They put him in the sleeper hold and Hulk Hogan's like, like they keep raising the arm and it falls. He raises the arm and it falls. And then the third one, it's like, I'm still here. And then he kind of, you like the cheering, like he gets the adrenaline from the cheering crowd and he kind of starts kind of getting up and the Hulkamania comes out. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it seems like that's how it was. It was like, how the fuck are these guys still getting up after punching? Like, they're just going at it. And the dudes are just like, they get up and they still have a little bit of energy left.
Right.
And, they finally, they find a way to finally get Mad Dog in a certain way where they're able to like overpower him together.
Right.
Because the whole time it's like he's kicking his ass, then he kicks his ass, then he kicks his ass. This guy gets up, he kicks his ass again.
Right.
And then it finally like the rotation finally comes where they're able to get him at the same time.
Right.
And that's how they're able to overpower him, because otherwise they weren't doing it 1-on-1.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as far as like you were saying, I mean, I guess the art part of martial arts. I mean, this is definitely, like you said, they're choosing the cool fighting style rather than the, what's practical as opposed to what looks good. So I can only imagine the pie chart for the budget on this movie was fight choreographer got a big chunk of that fucking pie,
right?
Because the acting was meh, the dialogue wasn't maybe the best, but
right.
I mean, they had some props that probably,
yeah.
But yeah, the choreography of the fights, because it's essentially just one big fight. I mean, it was awesome.
I think it's a perfect storm of like Gareth Edwards knew how to film these sorts of movies because he grew up on these sorts of movies, and he worked with a crew of guys that were like, that they probably also understood, like, we need to play to the camera. Make sure everything looks good in camera. That's the most important thing. I don't care if it's authentic or this or that or would be effective. I'm sure a lot of those moves are effective, but it's really more about like what looks good on film, and let's focus on that. And I like I said, I feel like I really do feel like The Raid is a very important movie in the grand scheme of things. In the style of the movies that we are now watching now. I know you had mentioned you're watching Daredevil as a recent, and I wouldn't be surprised if like some of those sequences are just like, it's like a more refined version of what they did on The Raid, and it's a little bit of their take on it, and making sure that they're playing to the camera, that the sequences look cool, and we keep on like we keep in those framed as long as we can. Like I remember, and I think you say you were revisiting the Netflix Daredevil first, but there's that hallway sequence where I don't know if you got into that one where he's like fighting down a hallway.
Yep. Yes.
By the end, he's exhausted, right? And that is like, I mean, it has to be.
That is copy pasted from this movie,
right? But they take it to the next level, right? Of like, they really show him exhausted, because it's just one take. And here, we kind of see it, but we don't see it like as exhausted as Daredevil was. But this is the reference for that movie. I don't think that sequence happens in Daredevil without it.
No, you're absolutely right. We literally, like maybe last week we saw that episode. I know exactly what episode you're talking about. Yep. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like they're taking into account the energy and the fatigue of combat like this. Because like there's even a scene where Rama's like walking and he's like he's holding himself up by leaning and kind of dragging against the wall in the and there's a scene in Daredevil. It's the same thing. He's kind of like he just fought a bunch of thugs. And he's kind of leaning up against the wall, trying to walk towards a door. And then a guy comes out and like with a little bit of energy, he kind of like, it's not even a punch. He just kind of like leans that way and just kind of throws his fist.
Right.
Rather than like, he's not punching. He's just throwing his hand.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because they're so exhausted. Because he just fought like 8 guys. There's dudes just sprawled everywhere. And it's the same way here. Like, he's fighting all the machete guys. And it's like, they show him like he's just visibly exhausted, and it's like there's one where he's like he's almost like his shoulders are slumped, but he's like, okay, one more, and he just he just kind of punches a dude, and then he goes down, and then man, I cannot speak highly enough about the fight choreography in this film. You've exposed me to a whole like I've got to get my mitts on some more of this. Stuff from international fight stuff, and there's just clearly I'm not, this is the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, I've given you the appetizer to a lot of these sorts of movies. You'll be super happy to know that there is a Raid 2, and it has.
Oh, I was already looking. Yeah, I was already looking.
It has very little. If it has very little, if nothing, to do with the second one, or the first one, which is totally fine. Okay. And they actually kind of go a little bit further into the, hey, let's just build a character, right? Like, let's just build these characters that are badass at doing a thing. It's really good, and you'll definitely like it. But then I don't know if there's like a third Raid, but I will say like on Netflix there was a movie with Aiko called The Night Comes for Us. That one is kind of like a spiritual, like you could say, third movie to the Raid, I guess. Kind of. It's got. It's more. I would say that one's more Americanized than these. Not to say that that's like necessarily a bad thing, but there's just something about the way it's filmed, and it's got a different kind of budget to it, or whatnot. But it is really good. And so there's that, but there's a whole fleet of these types of movies that are really super awesome, and like it's really cool to see these movies from other parts of the country that are fans of film and genre as well too, and they're in some ways I think like doing things better than we are, which not to say there's anything wrong with that. Like, I feel like, the Westerns that most people are used to that were done really well were done by the Italians, like spaghetti Westerns are really what drive what people think of when they think of certain Westerns, because they knew the aesthetic maybe a little bit better than we did. But, well, I guess let's, so I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball at you when it comes to, if we're going to determine whether this movie is a top shelf video or not. I think clearly this movie is a top shelf video.
I concur.
I'm going to say, though, that this movie probably goes into the top shelf video selects.
The selects.
And the reason why I'll say that is for the same reason that you were just saying, like, I'm sort of being exposed to some of this that I've never actually seen before, because again, however, people take in, their stuff, and some people are more film nerds and they like to like learn about where some of this stuff sort of came from. I feel like this movie is like a foundational piece to a lot of other movies, that, not to say that you have to watch them in any particular order, but if somebody is very interested in, like, if they watch like Daredevil, or they watch some of these other movies and go like, oh man, that's interesting. I wonder if there's something like that. It's like, oh, I can show you the origin point of a lot of those sorts of movies.
Right.
And you're seeing that now, right? Because we see this sort of action everywhere, like the Captain America movies, and a lot of other, of these sort of, I think, what is it? There's like Reacher, I think, is the TV series. and stuff like that. So you see a lot of this kind of stuff already, but I can almost point it all back to this. And so like, not to say that I'm gatekeeping, but I'm also kind of saying like, oh, if you really want to know some of your film history, here's your homework. Like, it's to watch this movie, because it's like I said, it's a little rough around the edges, but I think that I like that, because it speaks to, you don't need to have a lot of money, or have to live in Hollywood, or have to, whatever, in order to make a good movie. Like, these guys did it outside the box, like 100%. And they did it from their own self-education of how they should sort of do this. And it all just kind of came together. And so I definitely think this is a movie that, we would want to give or rent out for sure. But I think like, we'd still offer it as a top shelf video, but I would say like, for select people, I would be like, hey, if you really know, or want to know more, like, let us educate you, and we'll kind of, like, if you stumble across this one, we're going to say, good for you for finding this. And we would definitely say like, oh man, you got a good one here. But I would also use it as a pivoting point of a, like, education for action films, and stuff like that. So I would like for this to be a top shelf selects.
You will, no argument from me. Indonesian martial arts is now a thing. It was not on my bingo card, basically.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I got nothing else. I mean, that you pretty much nailed, nail on the head.
Well, yeah. So when it comes to format, I think obviously, we want this on Blu-ray, but this is one of the few times that I actually will say that, like, I think this movie actually, because I was watching the 4K version of it, because it recently came out on 4K, which is probably how you're watching it too. If you watched, did you watch it?
I rented it on Amazon Prime.
Did you watch it with subtitles, or did you watch it in English dub?
I put the subtitles on thinking I was going to need to, but it was already like, I guess, like on Amazon, I put subtitles, yes, but it already had them.
Oh, okay.
Like, you know what I mean? Because like our subtitles was blocking the subtitles that were already playing on the movie. So I was like, oh shit, we don't need that. So I turned it off, because the movie was already, like, they were built in, I guess.
Right.
It didn't need the Amazon caption.
Okay, so it wasn't the dubbed version, because there is a dubbed.
Oh no,
English dub of that.
No, we watched it in.
Okay,
in its
correct format.
Correct language. Correct.
Yeah, because I feel like it's more. It has a level of intensity that it's lost a little bit in the dub, which, it's fine. Like, the dub it's not a bad dub. It's just the inflection and, like, the tone of the characters.
Sure.
Like, you pick up on it a little bit more. But man, if there was ever a movie I ever wanted to see transferred to VHS for, like, distribution, or like for us to rent, man, this one's got to be one of them, because the fact that we watched it on the side of our house, like on just a wall, with a kind of graininess, because it was like it was like wood paneling, but it was white, so we're like, yeah, it'll be fine. And it actually added something of just like this
the graininess and the I mean, it was like a slum
building.
I mean, it was already dark and dirty, so I mean, it's almost fitting to put it on VHS because we're a little dark and dirty, I mean, it's the grainy,
it adds like a level
sense.
of texture, that's just kind of like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, it's almost like you're watching the video footage from the landlord, who has all these cameras around, and you're kind of just watching the whole thing play itself out.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
So I think we would have a very like if we can get a like a limited edition or some sort of special collector version of like this, on VHS with the clamshell thing like that. I think that would be awesome for the store, because that actually, now that I think about it, that's pretty much how we would probably do it, right? Which is like, if you find this on the floor and you're going through the action section and you come across the Raid on Blu-ray or 4K, it's like, yeah, cool. But if you're really interested, like, we can rent you out the VHS behind the counter, if you really want to see it, I think in the format that we feel would be best represents this, but also is like going back to the educational, like here, watch these 3 or 4 VHS tapes. And this is like this is a homework assignment, to see the movies, prior to this, like your Delta Force, that would have been before this, or what's another, like a big blow them up kind of movie. Well, maybe a little bit of like Invasion USA kind of stuff that sort of culminates to, the Raid, 30 years later.
Yeah. I can see where like in the like martial arts section, we would have like the dubbed version of this. And then the select version would be in its original format, original language with subtitles. I could see that. And the theatrical release poster looks like an awesome VHS case. Cover.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he's just kind of his silhouette,
whole story,
with the whole building in the background. That's pretty badass.
Yeah. Well, this one's a really, really solid movie. I was trying to think. I was like, what are there any are there any items that we could have in the store that sort of could represent, sort of this? This one's a little tricky because, like, we don't have fists. We can't just, like, have fists that we can put out as a marketing tool or whatever. And so I was kind of thinking quite a bit. The only thing that I could come up with, and it's a little cheap, but, when you're grasping for straws, but I thought it would actually be cool to have the building, because it's just a square building,
right?
But it's like an incense holder, so like little like smoke comes out of the windows, and like and it's like, oh, what's going on inside that building? It's like, oh man, you don't want to know what's going inside that building, and
right.
So because it's on the cover of the box, and you could kind of, a couple of the windows maybe are lit up or whatever, just kind of incense to kind of have in the house or whatever, or whatever. But the only other thing I can think of is just like maybe like a cool like baseball hat to kind of go with it, but they wear like those
like a SWAT team kind of.
I was kind of thinking that, but they like those, they were like the very G.I. Joe SWAT. Or
they had a tactical
helmet.
Like, they were a tactical helmet with body armor, blah blah blah. So.
Yeah, that was the only thing I was like, well, I don't know, maybe like a baseball hat, it says like the Raid, or like a T-shirt, but I can't.
Yeah,
there weren't too many things I could think of on this one, other than
the only thing I could think of just off the top of my head, because I know times are different, because when we were growing up, it was easy to go buy toy guns at, like, there was a whole section of toy guns at KB Toys.
Oh yeah.
And so I think they even have them still like in the dollar stores now, but it's basically like your it comes like in a little set, like it's like a cheesy looking. It's like you have one that's like an army guy, so it's like a cheesy, crappy molded combat helmet with a M16, probably about 24 inches long, a fake grenade. You know what I mean? It's like it's just like a army guy set.
Right.
So like with this one, I could see like the SWAT team set, and it would just have a walkie-talkie, an M16. Probably a helmet with a half broken visor thing, and then a belt. Yeah. Maybe a compass. No, compass is army. So a walkie-talkie and probably a pistol. Yeah. You'll have like a fake pistol, a little plastic molded pistol, and then the M16, and then a helmet, kind of thing, and probably something that says like police or SWAT. Yeah.
Well, it would say the Raid, or
yeah. For this one, it would be the Raid,
yeah, or something along those lines.
So like a dollar store quality SWAT team.
Yeah,
set,
I could see that. Yeah,
and it just says the Raid on it.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, because there's, like you said, they don't have like nunchucks. There's nothing.
Yeah, no.
It's
the only thing I can think of is outside of that would be like maybe like a mail opener that looks like a machete, because of the machete gang or something like that. But even then, that's a little bit of a stretch because they're not like the main, sort of looks. It's Mad Dog and Rama. There's like two guys, but their essence is what's cool about them. Not any, they don't have a Captain America shield or or this or that or whatever. It's just they are being them is what makes them awesome. So yeah, there's not a lot of merchandising here, but that's we'll have a poster up for sure. I think the poster looks cool, and I think we can definitely do that. And then the format,
maybe just popcorn bags. Like we'll just have to kind of a rotation of themed popcorn bags for when people are walking around.
Sure. Yeah.
We'll have it'll just say the raid.
Yeah.
Like when they do like with other big releases, they make the popcorn buckets or whatever. This would just be printed bags with just the raid.
Oh, well, there you go.
Just kind of promote the movie.
It could be more in a box, and then the box is the building.
Oh, and the shape of the fucking building. Yeah, there you go.
There you go. That's what it is. That's our find there. Yeah, no, actually, I kind of like that because, I think we have one like that from Universal Studios or something. But yeah, no. That's what I have one from a Mystery Science Theater. And it's kind of in a boxy shape, kind of like that. So yeah,
fuck! I didn't even think about that. They could make just like that concept. If they ever re-release like the anniversary of Die Hard, the popcorn box can be like Yakatomi Plaza.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh no, yeah, that's a really good idea. That's the way to do it. All ideas are copyrighted or patent pending. Just saying that now. Well, all right, man. Yeah. This was a good one. I feel I will. We won't talk about all the movies that we watch, but I'll definitely work up a list of movies that you'll need to watch that are going to be in this queue. But yeah, I guess if anybody has any recommendations or anything that they would want to have us review, or anything that they feel like kind of plays off of the raid, outside of obviously the raid too. But you can email us at topshelfvideopodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Instagram, topshelfvideotx on Instagram, and topshelfvideo.com is our website. And you can always listen to us on all most of the formats, Spotify, Apple Play, or, all those places. And feel free to, leave us comments or review us or, feedback is always good. We're,
definitely.
We're looking to
I would love to hear. I want to hear from people like recommendations of like a fight scene of a certain movie.
Oh yeah.
I would like, I'm definitely all about the fight scenes.
Yeah. This one kind of is kind of up there when it comes to the king of these sorts of movies. The bar has been raised on my end for sure. Oh yeah, and that's definitely a good thing. And you'll be happy to know that the bar goes up a little bit higher in the raid too. So whenever you get around to watching that, just let me know because I'll be very interested to know your thoughts on the raid too. But
all right.
Well, all right. We need to get back to the shop. I think some of our employees may have been playing around with some of the promotional matches, and it's a little concerning. And so I think you and I probably need to go out there, make sure everything's still under control and things are in order. But we also got to sort through all the return tapes. So if you want to get the return tapes, I'll go check up on the folks with the matches, and we'll get back to it, and we will talk to everybody at the next work shift. See you guys.
See ya.